There's a new Marvel out that's supposed to be nuts. We should go see that.
I just got back from the theater from watching Friendship, starring Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd, directed by first-time director, I don't know what his name is, and produced by A24. And the film is even weirder than I expected. Look, I'm a fan of Tim Robinson's work, okay? I'm watching Detroiters right now. Big fan of I Think You Should Leave. I think he's very funny. I'm less familiar with his work on Saturday Night Live. I think he came and went so fast that we didn't even have any time to appreciate him there. But Tim Robinson's brand of comedy is a very acquired taste, and it's very much based in the social cringe. This very Gen Z trend. Jackass back in the day was like this daredevil sort of on the edge of adrenaline, death-defying stunts of the early 2000s that I think really defined the youth and younger adults of the time as being, the most daring, crazy stuff, jaw-dropping things people could do. And now in 2025, the most daredevil, crazy, death-defying feats one can do is have a social interaction with somebody and not be second-guessing yourself and thinking you messed everything up or said the wrong thing, or people think you're weird. And I'm not saying that in the type of way that's like, oh, people, they're such snowflakes that ordering talking on the phone is scary to them. When we stormed the beaches of Normandy back in the day, what happened to men, all that kind of shit. I'm not talking about that. I mean, like, literally as a reflection of the times and as a reflection of where the youth and younger adults are at. That is literally some of the scariest shit you can imagine. It's like these awkward, cringe social interactions. That is the scariest thing. So this is pretty much a horror movie based around that. It's a horror movie with some comedy laced in, where you are just watching this train wreck of a social interaction unfold, which, by the way, you can't go and watch this movie if you're unfamiliar with Tim Robinson's brand of comedy, because it would just be a complete disaster. But it's kind of like all these sketches from I Think You Should Leave or whatever. What if the sketch doesn't end and we don't reset, and that person has to keep going through life. They have to keep living their life, whether it's at work or with his own family or with his neighbors and friends and whatever, and he's at a party or whatever it may be, just always making somehow the worst decision, saying the worst thing possible, and not being able to read the room, having seemingly no capacity for empathy, or having no self-awareness whatsoever, maybe even some narcissist qualities. And I think this is very much a film that not only highlights, like some of these things like male loneliness, for male adults, and some male mental health, things, and the social isolation that men can feel at times, as they get older or whatever. It gets harder to make friends, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And sure, that's there, but this is absolutely not a movie that's like trying to say something as sort of poignant or emotionally impactful on that end of like getting on the soapbox about something like that and preaching. I think it's definitely more to just show, not only to obviously do the thing of, well, what if the main character from an I Think You Should Leave sketch, like what if the camera doesn't cut, what if the sketch doesn't end, what if it keeps going to a feature length and this person has to deal with the repercussions of all of their faux pas that have stacked up into what ends up being just an insane snowball of all their bad decisions coming to a head, the karma of everything they've done wrong and all of their lack of self-awareness coming back to bite bite them in the ass. That is a funny premise in and of itself, but I think even more so it goes further as to say, here's the type of person that you may encounter in your day-to-day. Maybe they're a family member, maybe they're a friend you used to have, maybe they're a coworker you have, maybe they're someone you only had a very minor run-in with in a parking lot where they cut you off, or at a grocery store. They lack self-awareness. They generally lack like the ability to empathize with other people. Maybe they're a little like socially autistic, or they have like minor Asperger's or something. Like they just cannot read social cues. They cannot read people and like read the room very well. They come off as very like shitty and mean and whatever. You look at and you think, well, why are they like this? Why are they so inconsiderate? Why are they so like mean and shitty all the time and rude? And not to spoil too much, but there's a line in the film where he says at one point, if you really want a friend, just have a son if you need someone to hang out with. And like, it's a joke in the movie kind of, but like, I don't think there's a certain point in this movie where I feel like it's not as much joking anymore. And the what is funny about it is, I think what's funny about it in a fucked up way is that there are actually people like this out in the world. There are actually people out there who nobody likes them because they are like a narcissistic, shitty, rude person to be around, that like cannot help themselves but to just be selfish all the time and like not act in any care or regard for other people. They actually think things like that. They have kids because they don't have a friend. They think that they're going to make a friend, and that having children is just something to take lightly. There's also a part where he's essentially like, all I need in life is to get this exorbitant, ridiculous, SEAL Team 6 meal at this shitty restaurant where it's just so much food, it's so much calories, and he just feeds his face, and that's like all he needs in life is like these frivolous or sort of like marketing gimmick food ploys, and that is good enough. That's like happiness enough. That's all he needs, is to be able to maintain that kind of lifestyle. And it's interesting because I think what it's doing is it's showing you like, here is a glop person. Here is like a literal, like when you encounter these people, you are unsure if they have a soul. You're unsure if they are not just some like husk. You worry if they have real legitimate thoughts or feelings, or the capacity to care about other people, or if they're just completely selfish and borderline narcissistic lunatics that can do nothing other than act in their own self-interest. Spoilers. Obviously, this is a type of person that's like a low IQ glop person that, they're an exec for a marketing company which specializes in maximizing addictive retention features in mobile apps and games. This is, like I said, this is like a glop person. Like everything about this person is just not likable qualities, not things that one would really gravitate towards or seek out in a friend, or in a husband, or in a father look up to, or anything like that. And this person is like just kind of soulless. Like they don't even understand or quite process when he explains what he does for work to Paul Rudd's character. He doesn't even like register or have the self-awareness or awareness in general, whatever, to realize how like fucked up his job sounds and is. Like his job is about tricking, like learning how to manipulate and trick people and get them addicted to digital products, and how like shitty and soulless that actually is, and at the expense of the user and everything like that. And he doesn't even like register how that would be not a cool job, like why people would not be interested in that at all, and not want to talk about that or not want to engage with that. Like he's just a glop person. Like he wants to just sit and watch TV and like consume content, consume television, consume music, consume whatever his friends think is cool, buy nice flashy cars or go out drinking and partying with the boys, even though he's a grown man with a wife and a child and a good job. Like, he's worried about like these frivolous expenditures or hobbies that he's not really even interested in. He's only interested in because like his friend that he wants to impress is interested in. And it's like almost this keeping up with the Joneses thing. And he gets a drum set. He wants to get a new car and all this kind of stuff. And like, he just wants so desperately for people to like him and to look cool and to impress the boys. He doesn't really care about what his son or his wife thinks, but he wants to impress the boys. He fails utterly at it, and they just think he's fucking weird because everything he is doing is weird. And he's also like a criminal, and he's creepy, and he trespasses, and he's a stalker, and he abandons his wife, and spoilers. Yeah, it's just not a likable person, not a lot of redeemable qualities, and he is just this like glop person Redditor who just wants to consume and be satiated and plump and really doesn't care about much else as long as they're satiated with their processed foods and their content and drinking with the boys. It's like nothing else, pretty much nothing else matters. And they are completely content in life, which is just like in and of itself not admirable and just pretty off-putting. And there's something wrong about that I think any well-adjusted audience goer picks up on that makes this further the psychological thriller that it is. Just the dread of these are real people. And it's a lot of them. It's a lot of people that and encounter every day. The protagonist of the film is this person. It's not the other way around where the antagonist is this crazy fucking person. It's a little bit like an Adam Sandler film, some of the, Happy Madison or Happy Gilmore, whatever the fuck, the ones where he's a huge asshole, to people, which are several, but it's not in the way of, where there's still some like redeeming qualities or something. Like, this is just like a generally unlikable person who embodies really unlikable things, but it's set against this A24 Ari Aster sort of like horror, gritty, realistic shooting style and cinematography. And it is shot like a horror movie in its blocking and in its color grading and its everything, in its editing especially, my God. Because you can tell that even in the edit, they made it even more unnerving and like sort of horror like than it was even initially shot as. They make some very deliberate editing and music cue choices and sound design choices that just dial up that horror feeling, when in reality there's nothing actually, like, it's not a horror. It's if it's anything, it's psychological. It's not, but it's not, because it's still kind of played off like it's kind of a joke, but you're watching it all through the eyes of someone who like is not a reliable sort of narrator. They're not a reliable source of information, and it is you realize that you cannot truly believe every single thing you're seeing and hearing from the perspective of this character, as they are probably a little crazy. They're spiraling. They're in their crash out moment. They're in their like midlife crisis, absolute spiral crash out, and you can't trust the perspective of this person, which really alters your perception of the film by the end of it, and what you may or may not be able to take away from it. But surely what I take away from it is just that this is an extremely like socially inept, hurt, in some way person who's like incapable of saying sorry or like being earnest or genuine at any turn, and like not capable of apologizing, not capable of taking accountability, is only really ever thinking about themselves, and can barely even care about his wife or child, let alone, other people in his day-to-day, like his coworkers or his friends or neighbors or whatever, and he is not capable of maintaining a friendship properly. He's barely capable, if not completely incapable of even holding a marriage together, let alone these auxiliary, friends that he's trying to make and desperately wants but can't maintain because he can't stop himself from just being a rude asshole in social settings and pushing people away. And he barely seems to really even understand why he self-sabotages all the time, and why he doesn't seem to understand why people don't like him, and it bothers him, but he can't even articulate why exactly. And it's a character that unfortunately is a static one. He's a static character for the most part. He doesn't get, I guess he's not a static character. He does change. He just changes for the worse, unfortunately. And, my favorite scene in the movie, I think, is probably the character, and obviously, like I said, spoilers, the character goes on a pseudo sort of ayahuasca trip. It's like a step down from ayahuasca, whatever. He licks a toad. He goes on what's supposed to be this vision quest trip where he's going to find himself. He's going to die and be reborn. And this person has so little going on up in his brain. His IQ is so low, and he's so dumb and uncultured and just unwise and lacking self-awareness so much that he has this trip, and he only trips essentially for like a minute, and his trip is just him going to Subway and ordering a sandwich. But the person making the sandwich is Paul Rudd's character in the far future. If things go absolutely horrible for Paul Rudd and he loses everything, and he loses his good job and his looks and his everything, and time gets the best of him, and he's sort of disheveled and just working at Subway making fucking sandwiches for people at a menial job like that when he's like 50 years old or whatever. And it's like sad and depressing. And Paul Rudd's character is clearly, he knows that Tim Robinson's character, Craig, is the reason that Paul Rudd is there. He is the reason that Paul Rudd lost everything and is working at Subway. And you can tell Paul Rudd is resentful towards Tim Robinson's character because of that. And then Tim wakes up from the trip right then. It only lasts like a minute, and he was just in Subway, whatever. And he wakes up and he says to his Vision Quest drug dealer guide, he says that nothing happened, and all he did was go to Subway and make a sandwich, and nothing happened. There was no meaning. There was nothing to glean from the experience, and that he's been gypped by paying for this drug experience. And it just shows that he not only is his brain activity sort of so unsophisticated that his trip ends up being just him going to fucking Subway, but there is meaning in his trip, which is that Paul Rudd is there showing what will happen to this person he says he cares about, or you could interpret it as like, this is what Paul Rudd's character is really like deep down, like he's not a cool guy. He's not suave. He's essentially, he is the type of person that should just be working at a Subway. I don't know if that's, I don't get the sense that that's what it meant. I feel like it was like, this is what you could reduce Paul Rudd's character to if you keep treating people like this and being selfish. Like, this is the alternate timeline. And he doesn't even recognize that it's Paul Rudd's character. He doesn't even recognize any of that or get any of that meaning from it because he's so oblivious. He's so lacking in self-awareness. He's so low IQ, and he's so quick to just be like, well, I got gypped, and he doesn't think critically about it at all. And he's so unaware and so lacking in care for others or thinking about others in any way that he doesn't even stop and really look at Paul Rudd's character at Subway and recognize that is him and what is wrong and what he is supposed to do here. He just doesn't get it at all. It just completely goes over his head entirely. And I think that's so funny. That is like one of the funniest parts of the movie. To me, it really is, because it's just so fucking real. There are people who, even if you give them the opportunity, they can come to this crossroads and it could be right there in front of their face, meeting them where they're at their level, and they're still not going to get it. They're still not going to wake up. They're still not going to change for the better. They're still not going to do better and improve or want to improve or want to see the other side or admit that, they could do better or whatever. And I just think that's so funny because that's also so real. It's so real, so realistic. And I've never quite seen that been done before in a film quite like that. So poignant, and it comes in the form of this like pseudo comedy, psychological thriller, whatever, which I think is very funny, just like ironic almost. And that was like my favorite scene in the movie. I just thought that was so funny and poignant and important, and I think it's important that you try not to be that person. You try not to be the person who could be there at that crossroads and just have it totally go over your head and make it about yourself immediately and like how you've been victimized or whatever the fuck, because that's what people do all the fucking time. When they come to some issue in their life or some obstacle or something bad happens to them or whatever, there's some trial or tribulation, they think, well, I've been victimized, I've been hurt, this is all I'm taking away from this is just I have bad luck or I am victim and bad things happen to me and I don't deserve it, and et cetera, et cetera. And they just try to get away from it as fast as possible and move on and pretend it never happened instead of like thinking like, why did that happen? What could I do better? What brought that on? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? It is like a depressing movie, I think, for that reason, because you are just seeing the spiral and the life being ruined of this everyman character who is too dumb for his own good, but not in the sort of funny, haha, endearing way that like a Billy Madison, Adam Sandler, or a Will Ferrell, Step Brothers, it may be a little, you know what I mean? Like there's just nothing there that you are really rooting for because he's just a little too creepy. He's a little too self-centered and shitty. And the way the movie is shot and presented, it is totally too serious and depressing to fully get and extract that much comedy out of. Like, even as someone like, I love Tim Robinson's comedy. I've loved everything he's done. Also very cool to see Connor O'Malley and his other friend that is in a lot of sketches with him also makes an appearance. I can't remember his name. He was in the Mask sketch that Connor O'Malley did, the other guy. It was cool seeing them. They do a great job. Underutilized, like they're not in the film that much, but this is absolutely a Tim Robinson brand of comedy, but it's in a totally different setting. It's in a feature-length film runtime set against this horror sort of execution and backdrop and aesthetic, and it definitely changes that dynamic. It definitely changes your ability to enjoy a Tim Robinson kind of comedy. And ultimately, at least for me, even as someone who loves that kind of shit that he does, this was almost not funny at all to me. Like there was only a handful of times where I even remotely laughed. And they're not like, that's such a well-constructed funny bit, haha. Like it's more so just like uncomfortable, absolutely insanely cringe, like wild, you know what I mean? Almost like shock laugh, like shock value humor, even though it's shocking in the sense of like just the dread of this insanely uncomfortable social situation that everyone's put in that you have to sit through. Like that's what's shocking about it. It's like as bad as watching a beheading video. Like it's so viscerally painful to sit through at times. And if you don't find that in and of itself kind of funny or amusing, you're going to hate this movie. I think a lot of people are going to not like this movie. I think it's absolutely an acquired taste. I think there's going to be tons of people who don't even remotely understand this movie. I barely understand it. I barely understand exactly what it's trying to accomplish. Like I said, I think it's depicting like a type of person that we all wonder about and wonder like, why the fuck are they like that? Like there's no way that person's real. That can't be a real person. That's insane. They can't be like that all the time. And it's like, well, some people might be, and this is what that might look like. What if we followed that guy around who just cut you off in traffic or like, stole a purse from an old lady or just had like an insane crash out at a subway? Like what if we followed that person around? What if you followed around the person in your friend group who is just like a fucking weirdo that you hung out with one time and was just too weird and you guys all cast out and, you know, didn't add to the group chat. Like what would that be like? And this is that. And I don't know if we've really seen a lot of things that really this viscerally follow that sort of idea or premise or type of character. And so it's interesting to see play out, but it's not a ride I want to go on too often. And it was definitely hard to sit through. And like I said, it's also not really that funny, which I was not expecting. I was expecting there to be a second act slump, like midpoint sort of feels bad for a little bit, but then it picks back up and we, end on some better note. Not the case. Spoilers. It's just a dour, like from the moment the film starts, it is just dour, depressing, uneasy watch. And there's a few moments of comedy or levity, but it's always sort of just at the expense of like some bad thing happening anyway. It's tough. It's a tough watch. Everyone did a great job though. Paul Rudd does an amazing job. Tim Robinson does a great job at what he does. And I'm afraid this is going to obviously typecast Tim Robinson even further, which it doesn't seem like he gives a shit at this point because he had to have known this is like the final nail in the coffin. Instead of going in the other direction and showing that he has some chops and range, et cetera, like he just goes full on like just caricature of himself yet again. And this is his theatrical debut acting in a lead role, and he is just on full fucking blast, dialed up to 12, dialed up to 11, whatever, and is just fucking insufferable as a leading man here, and is creepy, and it's just everything so he's just, any chance he had of not being typecast here on is like this guy, there's no chance. So I think it's interesting, but like I said, if you don't like that kind of humor or whatever, just skip it, because it's a tough watch and it's not a date movie. Do not take a girl to go see this fucking movie. Okay? It's not funny. Even if your girlfriend watches I Think You Should Leave with you sometimes and likes it or whatever, and you guys laugh a lot at it, that does not mean they're going to like this movie. This is a fucking depressing, dour movie. It's a boys movie. It's not a girls movie. Okay? It's very much not a girls movie. Like the only girl in the entire film is just treated horrifically by the main character of the film. It's a nightmare, so just skip that. Go see it alone. Go see it with the boys, whatever. But Jesus Christ, it's a depressing watch. It's not funny. And I don't think it's funny. It's not funny. Like, it's not. I'm sorry. It's just too fucking serious. Like, it's an interesting movie. It's not it's not fun, and it's not a feels good, and it's not, you know what I mean? But I respect on an artistic level what they tried to do with it, and how they tried to spin it and make something interesting out of the Tim Robinson sort of comedy format, because there's not a lot of ways that you could go exactly with that. That's really all I have to say. I mean, if you really, really like the people, if you really like Paul Rudd and you like Tim Robinson, you like Connor O'Malley, go see it, because if you're the type of person that just watches movies for the actors and the people who are in it or whatever, then you're still going to like it, because you're going to get everything you want out of it. Paul Rudd's a charming blah, blah, blah. Tim Robinson's a, fucking borderline asshole, narcissist, weird guy. You get everything you want out of everybody. They all do a very good job. The music is really great. I know I didn't even mention that. We're mentioning this at the 11th hour, but the music's really great. I love the music. The music stops musicking like by the third act of the movie ish. Like, you just forget. There's just like, they just forgot about music. I don't know what was going on there, but the first half of the movie, the music's amazing. I wish they kept that going, but that's really all I have to say about Friendship, guys. Oh my God. That's really it. I don't know. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I don't know. I don't know, dude. I'm exhausted. Thank you so much for watching and giving me some of your time today. It means the world to me. I love making content like this, and I'm going to continue to do so. Comment down below and tell me what you thought about the video, what I talked about. Give me your thoughts. I would love to hear it. I try to respond to them all. Like the video if you enjoyed. Lets me know you want to see more content like this. Subscribe to the channel. It's free. It supports me in the channel. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And hit the bell as well to be notified when new uploads come out. I'll see you on the next video, and I hope you have a great day.